I want you to take a breath with me, in and out. Now imagine this, it's early morning. The light is soft, your house is quiet, and your hands wrap gently around a warm mug of tea. It's in this kind of moment, quiet, honest, that we get to talk about something important, something real. You see, I've spent over 2 decades working with patients just like you. Folks over 50, many retired, some still working, but all carrying stories. Stories of strength, of heartbreak, of resilience. And for many, stories of cholesterol. Cholesterol, such a clinical word, isn't it? But behind that word are real things, aching legs on a walk you used to enjoy, pills on the nightstand, blood tests that sneak in a little anxiety before breakfast, maybe even the memory of someone you love who didn't catch the warning signs in time. If any of that feels familiar, I want you to know you're not alone. You're not broken. And most of all, you're not powerless. In fact, today I want to help you remember just how much power you actually have. Not in a gym membership, not in another bottle of supplements, but in your kitchen. That's right, I'm talking about food, real food, beautiful natural food that doesn't just fill your belly, it speaks to your heart. Over the years, I've seen something again and again when my patients make small, consistent changes in what they eat, their numbers shift. But more than that, their energy shifts. Their mornings feel lighter. They walk a bit further. They sleep a bit deeper. And no, it's not about going vegan or counting every carb or quitting your favorite meals. It's about adding back the foods that love you back. So today I want to share with you 13 foods. Yes, 13 that have been proven to help lower cholesterol naturally. These are foods you can find in your grocery store, in your farmer's market, maybe even in your backyard garden. But more than just names on a list, I want to tell you stories. Stories from my patients, from my own life, from science that makes sense. I want you to understand not just what to eat, but why it matters. Because your heart, it's more than an organ. It's where you hold your memories, your family, your hopes, and you deserve to protect it with kindness, not fear. So grab a cup of tea and stay with me. Let's walk through this together. Let's begin right where healing often starts, with the simple things we bring to our table. And the first one might just be waiting for you in your pantry already. 1. Oats, the morning whisperer. Oats, humble, quiet beige. Not the flashiest thing on the shelf, but you know what? It's often the quiet ones that do the deepest work. I remember a patient named Robert. He was 63, recently retired, and came to me because his LDL cholesterol had crept higher over the years. He had already started walking every morning and even gave up his beloved bacon, but his numbers were stubborn. I asked him, "What do you usually have for breakfast?" He looked at me, smiled sheepishly, and said, "Toast, white bread, with butter." So I introduced him to oats, not the sugar-loaded instant kind, but good old-fashioned rolled oats. We talked about beta-glucan, a soluble fiber in oats that acts like a sponge in your intestines, soaking up cholesterol before it enters your bloodstream. Just 3 grams a day of beta-glucan, which you can get from one bowl of oats, has been shown to lower LDL by up to 10%. 3 months later, Robert came back. His LDL had dropped. But more than that, he said he felt lighter, clearer in the mornings. He even started adding berries and cinnamon to his oatmeal, like it became a little ritual, a moment of peace to start his day. So I ask you, what's your morning like? Rushed, habitual? What would change if you turned breakfast into a small act of healing, too? Avocados. The Heart's Green Gold avocados. Creamy, rich, full of flavor, and full of heart-loving fats. Some folks fear fat, especially after all those low-fat diet fads of the 80s and 90s. But not all fats are created equal. The monounsaturated fats in avocado can actually help lower LDL cholesterol and raise the good HDL. One study published in the Journal of the American Heart Association found that one avocado a day in a moderate fat diet reduced LDL cholesterol levels, especially the small, dense particles that are most harmful. But beyond the science, there's the joy. The joy of slicing open that soft green flesh, of spreading it on whole grain toast or blending it into a smoothie. Food that feels good and does good. I had a woman named Eleanor, 70 years old, sharp as a tack, who once told me, "I eat an avocado every single day. It's my little rebellion against aging." And you know what? Her numbers look great. But more than she glowed, her skin, her energy, her humor. So maybe the question isn't, should I eat fat? Maybe it's, am I eating the kind of fat that loves me back? 3 leafy greens. Nature's sweepers, spinach, chives, Swiss chard, arugula, the deep greens of the earth. They do something beautiful inside you, almost like sweeping your arteries clean. Leafy greens are rich in fiber, especially soluble fiber, which helps carry cholesterol out of the body. But they also contain carotenoids and lutein antioxidants that prevent cholesterol from oxidizing, a key step in plaque formation. You ever notice how good a salad makes you feel afterward? It's not just digestion, it's chemistry. One of my patients, Carol, had been battling high cholesterol and borderline blood sugar. We made one simple change. She added a side of leafy greens, raw or cooked, to both lunch and dinner. Within 6 weeks, her LDL dropped, her blood pressure improved, and she told me, "Doctor, I don't know what it is, but I feel cleaner inside." And that made me smile, because sometimes healing feels like that. Not dramatic, just cleaner, lighter, quieter. So think about this. When was the last time your plate looked truly green? Not just a garnish, but a generous helping. Because your heart, it remembers that kind of kindness. 4. Fatty fish. The ocean's gift to your arteries. There's something deeply ancient and healing about fish. Culturally, spiritually, and biologically. Fatty fish like salmon, sardines, and mackerel are rich in omega-3 fatty acids, which help lower triglycerides, reduce inflammation, and even prevent arrhythmias. They also help raise HDL, the good cholesterol. I remember once I was giving a talk at a senior center, and someone raised their hand and said, "Doc, I thought fat clogs the arteries." And I smiled and said, "Only the wrong kind. The right fat actually unclogs them." Eating fatty fish 2 times a week can make a measurable difference, not just in labs and how your joints feel, how your mind works, how your heart beats. One man I knew, George, was a widower who started cooking again after losing his wife. He told me he began baking salmon once a week using lemon and garlic, and it became a ritual not just for health, but for memory. "It reminds me of our anniversary dinners," he said, and his numbers, better than ever. So maybe fish isn't just brain food, maybe it's also soul food. 5. Berries, the sweet armor. Strawberries, blueberries, raspberries, tiny fruits with mighty power. Berries are loaded with anthocyanins, a type of antioxidant that not only reduces LDL cholesterol, but also helps prevent its oxidation, which is key in protecting your arteries from damage. They also reduce inflammation, which is at the root of most chronic conditions, from heart disease to arthritis. I often tell my patients, if you're going to have something sweet, let it be berries. They're low in sugar but high in fiber and antioxidants. And they remind us that sweetness doesn't have to come from a bag or a bottle. There's one lady I'll never forget, Mrs. Alvarez, 68 years old. She'd struggled with emotional eating after retirement. So we created a ritual every evening. After her walk, she'd sit with a bowl of Greek yogurt and berries. It became her moment not of restriction, but of reward. So let me ask you, what if your dessert could be your medicine? What if healing could taste like summer 5 foods? 5 gentle, nourishing ways to care for your heart. And we've only just begun. In the next part of this journey, I'll share more, including a few surprising ones. Foods you might not think of, but that could become your quiet allies in the fight for better health. Because at this stage of life, you've earned more than another prescription. You've earned wisdom and peace and the kind of nourishment that whispers, I've got you. 6. Beans and lentils. The humble heroes. Beans don't usually get a standing ovation. They're not glamorous, but they are steady, faithful, and quietly powerful, kind of like a best friend who always shows up even when you're not looking your best. Black beans, kidney beans, lentils, chickpeas. They're all rich in soluble fiber, which helps trap cholesterol and escort it out of the body. They're also high in plant-based protein, low in fat, and naturally help regulate blood sugar. I often tell my patients, if you want to feel full, grounded, and satisfied, beans are your ally. And if you're someone who gets a little, let's say, gassy, just soak them overnight, rinse well, and cook with herbs like cumin, ginger, or bay leaf, nature's natural dew bloaters. A couple I worked with, Betty and Tom, both in their late 60s, started having lentil soup for lunch 3 times a week. Within a few months, their cholesterol dropped and their doctor reduced their statin dosage. But more importantly, they said it gave them something simple to look forward to, a shared pot and a warm bowl, a moment of connection. Isn't that what food should do? Nourish not just the body, but also the bond between us. Apples, the crunch of simplicity. You know the old saying, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Well, it turns out Grandma was onto something. Apples contain pectin, a soluble fiber that binds to cholesterol in the gut and carries it out before it's absorbed. They're also full of antioxidants that reduce inflammation and oxidative stress. But beyond the science, there's a kind of innocence to an apple, isn't there? It reminds me of school lunches, of farmers markets, of fall days when the air turns crisp and cool. One of my clients, a retired teacher named Denise, told me she started ending her lunch with an apple instead of a cookie. It gives me something to chew on, she said with a laugh. And sure enough, her LDL dropped 12 points in 6 weeks. So let me ask you, when was the last time you bit into something real, whole and grown from the earth, not packaged, not processed, just a simple apple? 8. Dark chocolate, the bittersweet medicine. Yes, you heard me right, chocolate. But not just any chocolate. I'm talking about dark chocolate with at least 70% cocoa. Wah! Because cocoa is rich in flavonoids, powerful antioxidants that help improve blood vessel function, reduce inflammation, and lower LDL levels. But there's more. Dark chocolate can also help with mood and stress, which, believe it or not, indirectly affects cholesterol. Chronic stress raises cortisol, which can raise LDL. So if one square of rich, bitter chocolate helps you exhale, well, that's medicine too. One of my dearest clients, a widower named Howard, kept a tiny stash of dark chocolate squares in a tin. After dinner, he'd let one melt slowly on his tongue, then call it a night. He told me, "It's the closest thing I have to dessert and to comfort. So go ahead, let yourself enjoy it in moderation, with mindfulness, and maybe with a little gratitude too." 9. Garlic. The ancient warrior, garlic has been medicine long before we had the word medicine, used in ancient civilizations for strength, immunity, and yes, heart health. Garlic contains allicin, a sulfur compound that helps reduce the liver's production of cholesterol. It also helps relax blood vessels and reduce plaque formation. And while, yes, it does leave a strong smell, so does heart disease in a way. And between the two, I'd rather deal with garlic breath. Here's the trick. Crush the garlic and let it sit for 10 minutes before cooking. That activates its healing compounds. Eat it raw or add it at the end of cooking to preserve its potency. Miriam, one of my sharpest 74-year-olds, eats 2 cloves a day chopped into her salad. She jokes that she doesn't need bug spray anymore, but her doctor, he's impressed. So are you brave enough for garlic's honest fire? 10. Flax seeds, the little brown shields. Tiny, humble, and often ignored flax seeds are like tiny shields your heart wears every day. They're rich in omega-3s, lignans, and fiber, a triple threat when it comes to lowering LDL and reducing inflammation. But here's the key: you have to grind them. Whole flax seeds pass through your system undigested. Ground flax is where the magic happens. You can sprinkle it over oatmeal, stir it into smoothies, even add it to baked goods. One patient, John 58, added 1 tablespoon of ground flax to his yogurt every morning. In 3 months, his LDL dropped by 14%. But more than that, his digestion improved, his energy rose, in his words, not mine, "I'm pooping like a champ." Sometimes health isn't glamorous, it's just honest. 11. Turmeric, the golden root of resilience. Turmeric is more than a spice. It's a story of healing, of ancient wisdom, of resilience. The compound curcumin in turmeric helps reduce inflammation, lower LDL, and prevent the oxidation that leads to clogged arteries. It's not just about curry. You can stir turmeric into warm milk, sprinkle it over eggs, or mix it with black pepper and olive oil to boost absorption. I know a man in his 60s who started every morning with what he called his golden tea, turmeric, ginger, lemon, and hot water. His blood pressure stabilized, and he said, "It feels like armor from the inside out." That's what turmeric does. It builds something strong inside you, quietly. 12. Extra virgin olive oil, liquid heart health. Let me tell you this, if you only change one fat in your kitchen, let it be this. Extra virgin olive oil is full of monounsaturated fats and polyphenols, which reduce inflammation and improve cholesterol ratios. Use it for salad dressings, drizzle over cooked vegetables, even add it to warm soup. One Italian patient of mine used to say, "Olive oil is life." And looking at the Mediterranean diet, he may be right. It's not just oil, it's culture. It's heart care from the inside out. 13. Walnuts and almonds, the pocket protectors. When you snack, your heart listens. Walnuts and almonds are rich in healthy fats, fiber, vitamin E, and plant sterols. Studies show that a small handful per day can lower cholesterol by 5 to 10%. But here's the key: raw, unsalted, and not covered in sugar or oil. I had one client who kept a jar of almonds by her front door. Every time she left the house, she'd grab 5. It became a ritual, her way of saying, I choose me today. So maybe your next snack isn't a compromise. It's a promise. You know, sometimes when we think about health, it feels overwhelming, like a long road with too many signs, too many warnings, too many don'ts. But I want to leave you with a different thought. What if your health journey isn't about restriction, but about restoration, not punishment, but nourishment? You've lived through decades of change. You've raised children, maybe buried parents. You've worked hard, lost sleep, carried more than your fair share. So please, don't ever believe the lie that it's too late. Because I've seen hearts heal in their 60s, 70s, and yes, even 80s. The human body is remarkably forgiving when we give it even just a little love. A handful of nuts, a bowl of oats, a splash of olive oil. These aren't just nutrients. They're a form of self-respect. I want you to think about your next meal, not as something to count or control, but as an invitation to come back home to yourself, to choose gently, to choose wisely, to say to your heart, I'm still listening, I still care. Now, if this video spoke to you, if something in today's video stirred something in you, maybe a memory, a new idea, or a little hope, then I want to ask you one small favor. Share it. Send it to your daughter who keeps reminding you to eat better, to your neighbor who's always asking about natural health tips, or to a friend who's scared to get their blood test results back. You never know. You might help save a life. Or at the very least, make someone feel less alone in this journey. Let's keep walking this road together. And if you haven't already, I'd be honored if you subscribed, not for the numbers, but because I believe in building a community of people who still care about their health, their wisdom, and their stories. I post videos like this regularly, full of real science, real food, and real heart. No gimmicks, no fear, just honest conversations, like the one we just had. Until we meet again, so make your tea, go for your walk, hug someone you love, and remember, health isn't about perfection, it's about presence, and your heart, your beautiful, faithful heart, is always worth showing up for. Until next time, stay well, stay kind, and stay curious. Gentle health, real food-wise living. Subscribe to the channel. You are not alone.